Hi, it's me again, Debbie, and today's topic is what is Meniere's disease? First of all, it's a vestibular condition, which means in the inner ear. Uh, it's a buildup of excess fluid. Just to put it in a simple form, it's not exactly everything that entails, but that's a lot of what it is, or part of it. um, In fact, when I first presented, I thought it was an inner ear infection. So, if you've ever had an inner ear infection, you kind of know what it feels like. Anyway, there's no known cause, no known cure. It's not new. The first person that I've researched and found that that presented with Meniere's disease, doesn't mean he's the first case, but it was Martin Luther, and that was about 300 years before Prosper Ménière began his studies at the Deaf Mute Institute that he was working for in France. It is approximately 1 in every 1,000 people worldwide that have been diagnosed with Meniere's disease. I say diagnosed because it's an illness. Since there's no known cause, there's only one test that can prove definitively that someone has it, and that's an autopsy. Well, there have been many times that I've begged my doctor to send me for one. He keeps telling me I wouldn't like the outcome. He's probably right, but they have to rule out everything else, and if certain things are still left, then they will generally diagnose with Meniere's disease. One thing that's coming out now that, in the recent years, that's been labeled Meniere's disease, it isn't, as vestibular migraines. Headaches are not associated with Meniere's disease. The basic symptoms are vertigo, which is more than just a dizzy spell. It is, everything is spinning out of control. In fact, there have been times that I've been laying on the floor and literally clutching with my fingers to the carpet in an attempt to keep me from falling off the floor. That's exactly what I felt like was going to happen. Everything is just spinning and moving so fast. That's vertigo. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with heights, like is usually thought of. When, in fact, I mentioned to someone once that I was vertigo because I was going vertigo at the time, and she thought it was that I had such a severe fear of heights that standing on the curb we were both standing on was what was causing me to feel dizzy. No. Some people who have a fear of heights, they may feel the dizziness when they are up high and look over, but this is completely different. It can last anywhere from a couple of minutes to days. The last research I did, the medical records are trying to say anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. But speaking from personal experience, mine has lasted up to 48 hours. So that's a lot more than several hours. And I've heard of people where their vertigo lasts 5 days. In fact, when I first began my research back in 2006, I had my first surgery, endolymphatic sac decompression, in February of 2006. I was symptom-free for about 2.5 months, and it came back, and my doctors, knowing that I'm a writer, they all suggested that I write a book about Meniere's disease. Not just write a book about my experience, which is what most people do, but to research, because I am a researcher, and get information about Meniere's completely, and get it out there, because there's very little out there for the lay person, for people like me, for people that have Meniere's disease, for those closest to them, maybe caregivers or just their friends and family. So that's what all of this is about. That's one of the reasons why I started doing the video series, is to get this information that I've been getting from research out there to people, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people thinking, oh, I have a zit, is that part of Meniere's too? And that's trivializing it, but that's in essence what it comes down to. People thinking, well, this is happening to me, and it's totally unrelated, it's something else, and instead of going to their doctor, they kind of say, oh, this must be Meniere's too, so there's a lot of things going on. But the first thing I found when I was researching is that every single person with Meniere's disease is totally different. They're different with their symptoms, triggers, and treatments. Everything's different. So you can't just say, like with most, cancers and other diseases, oh, this is what's going to happen, and everybody's going to be presenting this way. For the most part, in some respect, it's completely different. In fact, back to the symptoms alone, the vertigo is the biggest. Hearing loss, tinnitus. In fact, because I thought I had an inner ear infection, I self-medicated because I didn't have insurance at the time. When it was all gone, I was still left with, it was in my left ear, I was still left with hearing loss and tinnitus. I thought, well, that's just, a souvenir from self-medicating and not going to a doctor, until it happened a couple of months later, and everything came back. So that is, symptoms there, the tinnitus, the hearing loss, brain fog. It's really, really bad for me when I'm going in and coming out of a bout of Meniere's. Also, aural fullness, the fullness in the ears, which I'm actually experiencing right now because we have a weather front coming in. It's the feeling that you have if you're going up a mountain, or if you're in an airplane, or maybe if you're a diver and you dive down to the depths and you get that fullness feeling in your ears. That's what it is, the aural fullness. Triggers. Everyone's different again. With my first one, we were trying to figure out what was causing. My ENT, who I was seeing at the time, he said, well, what about, does it come around the time of your menses? And I had actually already thought that, and was thinking back, and I was like, no, not that I could think of. And I started keeping a journal, which I'll get into a little bit later. And I started to see the pattern. Actually, it was. Hormones was a trigger for me. That was my main trigger. And then several months later, right before I became bilateral, actually it was a little more than about a year and a half after I first presented, I became bilateral. Right before that, though, I had my very first bout that was brought on solely by stress. So, I've eliminated stress. I've had to put people out of my life because they were, causing me a lot of stress. I've started meditating. I stopped watching the news. Getting rid of stress wherever I could has really helped me in a lot of ways. Weather, as I'd already mentioned, we got a weather front coming in. Weather is one of my triggers, and it's not. It's sunny outside right now, but I'm feeling it. It's not high pressure or low pressure. It's movement of pressure. It's when that barometer is, as I say, it's bipolar and it's off its meds, so it'll go up and down, and whenever it's moving, that's when I feel it. Living here in the valley below the Smokies doesn't help, because I feel what's going on up there as well, being so close. This is another area that's really bad for allergies. In fact, aside from Meniere's in general, East Tennessee is the worst place in the nation to live if you have allergies. And my neurologist has a lot of his patients that have Meniere's that allergies is a trigger. We did do all the testing and the shots for 6 months, and it's not one of my triggers. So I'm thankful for that. food and beverages, the first thing they tell you to do is limit your sodium. And I have another condition where I have to keep my sodium level high, and over the years I've learned how to do this and, keep it at an even keel, and I can feel it when it's, too high or too low. Excuse me. Other people are also affected with their Ménière symptoms with regard to caffeine, alcohol, wheats, other types of food, and it's like you just have to find your own. Back to the journal, and I'm segueing into my next video snippet. The next segment we're going to do is on keeping a journal, and that's the first piece of advice I give anyone who comes to me and asks me, or if I see something posted on Facebook, and I'll tell them, keep a journal. It has been a godsend for me keeping, when I was keeping a journal about my Ménières. It's helped me to see a lot and to learn a lot about me and how I am with this disease. So keeping a journal will be the next segment that we do, and I bid all y'all a great meantime, and hopefully spin free.